Welcome back to Checkmate with Blake. Today I have another opening video for you all. Today's opening is very special. Why is it special? Well, this opening has been played throughout the test of time. It has survived the test of time. It is played at beginner level, intermediate, and even grandmaster level. This opening is very solid and also offers very good attacking chances, so you'll have a very fun game as well. And most importantly, this opening is very strong defensively. Why do I say that? Well, in this opening that I'm about to talk about, you can get castled as early as move 4 and still have a very fun game to play. What is the opening? It's the Italian game, also known as the Italian opening. It's an opening that I played for a very long time, especially when I started chess. It was one of my favorite openings. It's basically the first one that I really got into and learned a bunch of theory on. The opening video today comes from a subscriber request, so if you want to see a specific opening that you're interested in, go ahead and leave that in the comments. I'll make videos for you as well. And lastly, if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow a lot. And of course, let me know what content you guys want to see. So if it's opening videos, if it's in games, whatever you're looking for, whatever you're struggling with in chess, just let me know, and I will try and make some videos to hopefully help you guys improve and hopefully make it enjoyable in the process. The last thing I want to say too is I actually have one of my first videos I posted on this channel is about Italian opening traps. So after watching this video, which is going to focus on how to play the Italian opening in a very solid manner, if you're interested in seeing some of the traps as well, go check out that video. I'll link an attachment to it above. So if you're interested in seeing that, go check that out as well so you can learn some of the traps, because by the end of this video, you'll know how to play the Italian opening very solidly. You'll know all the correct plans. And if you watch the other video, you'll know all the traps as well. So your idea or your understanding of the Italian opening is going to be very strong, hopefully, by the end of this video. All right, so what is the Italian game and why should you play it? Well, the Italian game starts with this move e4, they go e5, you go knight f3, and they go knight c6, and this right here signifies the Italian game. So if we just stop here, look at this position. If you're a beginner, I'm going to try and explain this in a way that makes it make sense. Why would we go down this route? Why would we play the Italian game? Well, first of all, notice that you're adding pressure to this pawn here, and they're using their knight kind of like in a defensive way, which of course you're going to find in many openings. I'm not saying it's wrong at all, but I'm just saying pointing this knight out here makes sense why it's a little defensive. And also notice that your bishop is attacking this f7 pawn. This is probably the most important thing of this opening, is that this bishop is actually your strongest piece. So you want to do everything in this opening to try and hold this bishop, because as I said, this f7 pawn is the weakest pawn in all of chess, and your f2 pawn likewise is the weakest pawn in chess. Also notice you're getting ready to castle, whereas black needs a few moves just to castle. So you're ready to castle, you're attacking their weakest piece, and you have good development and a strong center so far. So here we're going to talk about two main moves. We're going to talk about three. We're going to talk about knight f6, we're going to talk about bishop c5, and we're going to talk about bishop e7. Those are the three moves that you're going to face the most common. So we're going to go ahead and get started with it. After the move knight f6, which I think you will find the most, you play this move d3. You just simply go ahead and protect your center. You get your bishop ready to breathe, your bishop ready to come out, and you're getting ready to castle, of course, on the next move. Now you're going to find this move bishop c5, and here I recommend this move castling. After they castle now, I'm going to go ahead and point out my first recommendation. This is the recommendation I play on how you would play the Italian game, and it's this move c3. c3 may look like a very strange move because you're simply blocking your knight from developing, but what's the point behind c3? Why would I tell you to play c3? Well, c3 kind of prepares this pawn break in the center, right? Because notice you have a pawn protecting this, so now after you break, you're going to have, a great center. More importantly, though, it's also adding a little bit of breathing room for this bishop to kind of escape if need be. So, of course, you may look at this and say, well, you said that your bishop was the strongest piece. Can't they just go knight a5 and just simply win the bishop? So the first point in the video, again, another strength of this move c3, is you now can play the move b4, forking the pieces, and after they capture here, you take their bishop, which was a very strong piece, and now their knight has to kind of run away. The knight has to go to the rim. It's actually a horrible knight over here, and you can simply capture this, and you're already completely winning in the opening. So they cannot simply remove this the same way. So instead, a lot of times what you're going to find is this move d6. This is a more standard way to play if they don't try to just get some cheap trick in. Of course, they lose in that trick. But here you have two ideas. So the first thing that I want to say, actually, before we go into the ideas, you actually have to play a move. It's a very, very important move. It's another key idea, especially if you're going to play this move with c3. You need to play the move h3. Now, h3 looks strange, right? Because the pawn is on the side of the board. So what's the pawn doing? Well, it's designed to stop you from having this pin, okay? And this pin is so dangerous because let's say you play a random move. Now when they get this pin in, you kind of have to go with this move like knight b to d2, which although it's not the end of the world, notice you're blocking in your bishop. And of course, you're going to have a harder time with development. So instead, we just cut all that theory out and we play this move h3. Now notice they do not have this pin, so they cannot play it. Okay, so here's the ideas for black here. Notice they have a few ideas like h6, a5. These are kind of the ideas they're looking at. But there's a move that I think you're going to play the most often, that you're going to face the most often, so I want you to be prepared against it. And it's actually this move, bishop e6. Notice it's not the best move, but it's an excellent move, and I think you're going to play against it very frequently. And why would they play bishop e6? What's the idea behind it? Well, they know that your bishop is the strongest piece you have. It's the strongest piece on the board probably at the moment. So if they could remove your bishop, of course, they're not going to have as much trouble. So what do you play here? You have two main ideas. You're going to use this to your advantage. You can either take here, or you can play this move knight b to d2. And I'm going to kind of leave this up to you all as to what you guys would like to play, because this is a kind of a personal preference thing. So if you, for example, take this bishop, which is the best move, after they capture back here, you have a few ideas. First of all, you have b4, just immediately challenging this bishop. So we'll go ahead and go down that line. Let's say b4, we go back, and now you play a4. So what you're doing is you're actually threatening to trap this bishop, because the bishop cannot go anywhere, right? So they have to play this move a6, and you go here attacking the bishop again. They go back. Now, from an in-game standpoint, notice this pawn, this singular pawn, is actually stopping two pawns, right? Because if we just took all the pieces off the board, they can't push, or you would take it, right? And if they go forward, then you en passant. So it gives you a great in-game advantage already. And now what you'll notice too, if you just try to stop and look at this position, what's the weakness that black has in their position? To me, I immediately see this pawn here, right? Because the pawn doesn't have any pawns protecting it. Also, it's kind of pinned to the king, right? So I would play queen b3 here. Queen b3, just attack the pawn. And let's move queen d7, because they need to kind of protect the pawn. Now you could consider this move bishop e3, although I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, because from a human standpoint, bishop e3 is a little tough, because like their bishop's not that great, right? I mean, it's attacking f7, which does make it a strong piece, but even if you, let's say, move the rook out of the way, it's not like they can go here to try and attack this pawn. So to me, this bishop isn't as, it's not worth trading from a human standpoint, but of course you can play it. It's a top engine move. I would recommend, though, instead, maybe considering a move like rook e1, which notice it's the third best move. You also have this idea of going here to try and induce a weakness. Now, what's the weakness I'm talking about? They may play h6. You'll drop back, going bishop h4. Of course, it still wants us to play this bishop e3 move, which does make sense. Again, I'll reiterate it. It makes a lot of sense, so I'm not saying not to play it. But for example, bishop h4 kind of encourages pawn g5. And the reason that I say you should go down this line is because pawn g5 is actually kind of a beginner mistake to kind of advance these pawns so aggressively on the king side. Of course, if you're a grandmaster, intermediate, whatever, you're playing at these elos, of course this move makes a lot of sense and you're going to have a good game. But if you're a beginner, I would induce this kind of mistake, because notice the pawns can't go backwards, right? This pawn will become a target. Their king side's open. And they're going to have to play great defensive chess to try and hold their position as well. So if you're a beginner, I would recommend going down this line. If you're more of an intermediate or advanced player, maybe just going down with this bishop e3 line and trying to just trade down and just having the strong center. So I'm going to leave that option up to you. The other idea, what I said about rook e1, like let's say they play a random move. Now bishop e3 makes a lot more sense, because of course if they trade it here, you can take back with the rook. And notice they can't attack your rook very easily. So I would probably, if I were playing this game, I would probably prefer to go down this line of rook e1 and trade it and then get this rook here, with the idea of trying to swing the rook over and have a good kingside attack. But again, I'll leave that open to you, how you want to play it, depending on your elo. I think you should play it a little differently. But we're going to go back here a little bit and show this other line. Sorry, knight b to d2. What's the point behind this one? Now, this line's a little more forcing, okay? So if they take, you take back here, now they're going to strike with d5. d5 is going to try and contest your center and also attack it. And of course, if you take back, they're going to take with the knight. But notice they've actually hung this pawn. Now, of course, they didn't hang it. They're going to win a pawn in the process, but you won a pawn. So it's more of just a trade. Now they take here, attacking your knight, and you throw this in-between move in. Knight takes e6. Notice you're attacking the queen, so they have to take back. Notice they're doubling their pawns. You capture now. They'll trade queens. It's the best move in the position. You take back, and they're going to take this pawn here. So if you just stop and look at this, right, we're going to an endgame. So what do we have? What are our endgame strengths here? Well, first of all, our rook is doing pretty well on this open file. Also, notice they have doubled pawns. So the engine might say it's 0.5 for white, but of course, from a human standpoint, I would much rather play this position for white, and I think pretty much anyone would, because your pawns are going to do a great job kind of storming up here against their doubled pawns. Now, of course, they are attacking here twice, so you need to throw in this move knight d4 in first. And let's just say they play a random move like going here to attack this pawn. right? Because if you were to develop your bishop, obviously they would take the pawn. There's a few ideas here, but the one I want you to play that makes that's very easy to play, and it's kind of easy to just memorize, is just playing this move King F1. King F1 is simply designed to get away from this pin. And so now when you do challenge this knight at some point, you're not going to have as many threats with your knight being pinned. So I'm not going to cover exactly, much more in this line. What you'll also notice is that this pawn is weak. So like, for example, let's just say they play a random move. I don't know. Notice this move would make a lot of sense. Of course, your pawn is still hanging here, so you need to deal with this first. But if you just look at some of the top engine lines, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, notice here we're also even threatening to just go ahead and capture this pawn, which is good to point out. But let's just say rook e1, this move f5, and here you're just completely fine. There's actually a little tactic too where you could even consider taking here. Not just yet. Okay, if you're wondering why you can't take it just yet, well, if you're wondering why I'm even considering taking it, first of all, if you take it, they take back and you actually take the knight, but you can't do it just yet because they will take care of a check. But just to illustrate the threats you have, right? Because you're threatening this, you're threatening this. Like, if we just play a random move here, like, let's just, I don't know, let's just say we play a random move, and their rook ever goes away, like, goes to, I don't know, a random move here. Now notice when you take here, you are threatening to win it, and you're also threatening some kind of fork if you could remove their bishop. So just to point out from a human standpoint, because I don't want to go too in depth, because they can play a lot of different moves here, so it's kind of hard to cover each one, but I would much rather play white in this endgame here. So those are your two options going back, whether you take here away, or you just go with knight b to d2, and just planning on recapturing that way. So, to make it very simple for you all, what happens if they play bishop c5, right? c3 here first, okay? So instead of castling, you go c3. And the reason you go c3 is now they're going to play knight f6, and they're going to try and attack this pawn. And they're going to think, white's made a mistake. They can't develop their knight here, and I'm going to win their pawn. You go this move d3, they castle, you castle. Stop and look at this position. What do you notice? This is the same position as earlier. So the reason I recommend against bishop c5 is c3 immediately is because you're going to get a position that you're familiar with, because the two lines I just showed you that we just went down are all you really have to know. They're all you really have to memorize, assuming black plays, some of the best moves. And if they don't, of course, you're going to capitalize and you're going to kind of punish their mistakes. But this way you don't have to learn a ton of theory. You pretty much can play knight f6 and bishop c5 the same way. You can kind of go down both those lines the exact same way. So we're not going to go too in depth with it. But the move that I did say I'd cover as well is this move bishop e7. And why would you play bishop e7? Well, this is a move actually I would consider playing myself. I'm playing black. Of course, I played bishop e7. I played bishop c5. I played both. I played all of them, really. But after bishop e7, what's the downside of bishop e7? So what's the reason, first of all? The reason is that after they develop their knight, you're not going to have any ideas such as pinning the knight, because their bishop is just going to be here to capture them. You're not going to pin it to the queen. It's a very defensive, safe move. But what's the downside? Without having a knight here, you can play this move, right? Because this pawn's not under attack. Now when they capture back, you'll take, and a beginner mistake, but if you're a beginner or lower level, this might happen all the time. They're going to capture here, you take, and now notice you're completely attacking their center, right? Or you have a queen already out, you have a pawn protecting, you have a great central control, and you may say, well, why can't they just play bishop f6, right? Bishop f6 attacks our queen, we have to move our queen again, but notice actually here, you have an idea of e5. This is something you'll find in the Italian game, is you'll get a lot of positions where you're just storming the center with all these pawns and just completely crushing. After they go back, for example, bishop e7, now you have this move, and you're actually going to win the game already. What move is it? It's move 8, and you're already winning, because now you're threatening checkmate, and if you say, well, they can just block it like this, well, you just capture, and if they take back, it's simply checkmate. So also in this position, if they go back and just go knight f6, notice you still can consider e5. In fact, I may recommend e5 just to kind of see what they'll play, right? Because if you go e5, it's a little challenging. For example, they need to play the move d5, right? But you'll capture here, and you have a very tricky position, okay? Because even if you go down this line, let's say they capture here, you trade down, they take back, now you take here, and you're already immediately threatening this rook here. I mean, I would even consider an idea like this, although it may not be necessary, just simply castle and you're fine, because if they take, you're going to get a rook out, and I would say this position is favorable. I mean, the engine might say it's 0.2, but I would play this for white any day of the week. So those are the two lines that you need to know if they go down this way. Of course, you don't even have to play e5. If you want, you could probably just castle. What are some of the ideas? You could play knight c3 and just kind of protect this pawn. I mean, it's a very, very solid position. And for the more advanced players who aren't going to trade here in the center, they'll just play knight f6, and I would just recommend going knight c3, just kind of covering this pawn. Let's just say castles, castles. And here, notice you don't quite have this because the pawn would hang, but it's not necessary, right? Because you first of all have bishop f4, which to me makes a lot of sense. Bishop f4 is a solid move. Sorry, it's their move first. Sorry, we gotta slow down a little bit. We're going too fast. But notice here, all three of the top moves involve moving their bishop again. And even if you're a beginner, you understand moving a piece twice in the opening is not what you want to do. So instead, a lot of players are going to play moves like d6. That's what to me makes the most sense. And now bishop f4. And notice now, you're going to have a great attack on the king side, right? Because there's not a lot of congestion over here in terms of like pawns blocking it. So you're going to be able to move your pieces over to the king side and just completely have a great attacking game. Maybe get your rook over, do a rook lift, get your queen over here somehow, and you're going to completely crush with a nice attacking game. Of course, it's only 0.4, but again, Black's pieces are all in the the back three ranks, and yours are all controlling the center. They're very strong. Like I said, challenging here is not always what they want to do, because then you get a queen on the board up here. You develop a queen, and you're great. And also, what are you threatening to? Like if they play a random move, you always have ideas. You could simply take here if you wanted to and double their pawns. So those are the, bishop e7 lines. Just take the center. That's what I recommend. And just try and storm up the board. Try and get a nice, strong attacking game and a strong victory. So, but I want to cover some other lines here, right? Because there's some traps I want you to know. So in this position, let's just say castles, okay? They may look at this and say, well, can't I play knight a5 here, right? Can't I just eliminate his strongest piece? Because as you said, Blake, that's your strongest piece. Well, not exactly. Okay, so here, for example, we'll go down these lines. First of all, you have ideas like here. You can take the pawn. Like, at the worst, you could take the pawn, and after they capture back, you could take back either way. And notice you're already up a pawn. Okay, so you're already winning here if they try and capture. So they might try a move like d6 to kind of, say, well, I'm going to do this plan. I'm going to go here, and then you can't take my pawn. Well, you play c3, okay? And if they go knight f5 here, or knight a5 here, again, you have other options. I want to point out two tricky moves. First of all, there's a common idea that you should know, which is you can give a check, bring the bishop back here, and kind of solidify it here. Although you may expect, well, can't they just block here? And that's true. And then you can go ahead and take it, okay? And now notice you have a fork. You fork the two pieces, and you're already winning. Or if you're more tricky and you kind of want to show off, it's a little worse, but you can actually sacrifice the bishop here for a pawn for the same exact fork. So just want to point out that idea that I want you to be aware of, that you always have. And this move b4 comes in a lot of lines, like even worst case scenario, right? Like even if you go down this line, let's say you just can play it wrong, you forget that you have this check or you have this one, and they just capture here. Well, you can just take back here. Notice now you're still attacking the knight. They have to put the knight on the rim, and the knight on the rim is horrible. Now notice you just have a great center. So like what I would play probably here is just takes, and I may even just right away consider the move d4. Of course, it's not the best move according to the engine, but I'm saying from a human standpoint, d4 makes a lot of sense. Maybe you need to get your rook out first to kind of stop this, or maybe you consider a move like bishop g5, although not the best. Bishop g5 to pin the piece, then preparing this move d4, or maybe even rook e1 just to protect this pawn, preparing d4. But just to kind of illustrate, c3 is very strong because notice you're preparing this move d4. You're going to have a great attacking game, and your moves are easy, right? Like I said, you have this move, you have this move. You can consider queen e2, bringing your rook over here instead. You can bring your bishop to one of these squares. I mean, you have a ton of ideas, a ton of options. You can play it however you want. Versus playing black here, it's like, what is black doing, right? Because this knight's not good. This pawn has no pawns protecting it. It's a weak pawn. This pawn is more of a liability than an asset. If you could remove this pawn, of course, you're probably going to win this. And it's just not so clear for black. But white has a very easy game. I mean, let me know in the comments which side you'd rather play in this position. But those are some of the ideas I wanted you all to know. Hopefully this video wasn't all too long. But again, if you haven't seen the other video of the Italian opening traps, now that you've learned how to play this opening very solidly, go watch that other video. Again, I'll put a link on the video, so you can you can press it at the end if you'd like to, if you've made it this far. But if you've watched this one and you watch that one, you'll know all the traps, you'll know all the solid plans, and you'll know a very simple game of how to win with the Italian game. Again, if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow a lot. Let me know what content you guys would like to see next, and thank you so much for watching.